once, Bud. My ass.
I'm only four. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, poet.
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I am your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 13th year of the award at the 17th Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 1944. Today's guest is a very good friend of mine, Casey Young. Hello, Casey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How about yourself?
I'm chilling. I'm doing great.
That is great to hear. Now, before we begin, tell us, what is your familiarity with the Best Animated Short category?
In general, barely familiar. Yeah, I've really only kept up with the Oscars since I've been alive and haven't super been into the short category, I'll say.
Well, that's the same story for a lot of our guests, so you fit right in.
Awesome.
All right. So now let's get into the nominees. We have 7 nominees this year. The first nominee and the year's winner is Mouse Trouble, directed by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. This is the 7th nomination and 3rd win for producer Fred Quimby, and the 4th nomination and 2nd win for Tom and Jerry, having won the year prior for The Yankee Doodle Mouse. This short starts with Tom the cat receiving a book about how to catch a mouse. However, despite him following the book's instructions, none of it seems to work. In fact, Jerry the mouse has better luck using the advice against him. Casey, start us off. What did you think of Mouse Trouble?
Liked it. I think as far as Tom and Jerry goes, it's probably on the lower tier of ones I like. I think some of the visual comedy is great, but as far as the short, it's I don't know the general plot isn't necessarily the funniest thing to me, which is really only how I judge a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Oh yeah, the plot is rarely like the center point of like Tom and Jerry. It's mainly just about the various gags anyway.
Yeah.
But I surprisingly like this a lot. Like I think this might be one
Awesome.
of my favorite Tom and Jerry shorts because like I was surprised when watching it that like there are so many iconic gags in this one short. Like you have when like there's that meme where Tom is sticking the shotgun through the mouse hole and it points back at him. That's from this
Yeah.
short. Uh there's the gag when Tom like so Tom has Jerry cornered and it says in the book that like a cornered mouse never fights, and so he goes off screen to fight him. There's off-screen action, then Tom pops out and says, "Don't you believe it?" And that's one of my all-time favorite Tom and Jerry gags, and that's in this short. There's just there's a lot of like really iconic, really famous gags that are just in this short, and I guess that helped me really just love it. Like the short's very simple. It's just about Tom reading the book, and he sees some instruction, he does it, it fails, and yeah, it's a very basic Tom and Jerry short, but I think it really works. Like if you just want the simple cat and mouse stuff with Tom and Jerry, like you can't go wrong with this.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. uh we'll move on to our second nominee then. And that is And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street, directed by George Pal. This is the 4th nomination for George Pal and his 2nd collaboration with Dr. Seuss after last year's The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. This short is about a kid named Marco who was instructed by his dad to keep his eyelids up and see what he can see. After only seeing a simple horse pulling a simple wagon, Marco's imagination runs wild with more interesting scenarios he could talk about. So for the benefit of you, Casey, and for those who are listening to the first time, I hate George Pell. I hate a lot of his shorts. He is not like he is an innovator of stop motion, but I also hate him. Um, and this short is a very good example of why I don't like George Pal, because it's just a very tedious short in my opinion. It just so the description I said, where he just imagines something better that he saw than what he actually saw is his whole thing. Like he wants to Marco is pretty much a compulsive liar because he sees something boring and is just like, you know what? How can I lie about this? Because I don't want to go home and say, oh, I didn't really see anything. So he just creates more and more elaborate lies that he could have possibly seen, and then and that's just the entire short. This first off, the kid's very annoying. His narration is just grating to me, and then it's just like oh, maybe instead of a horse, it's a zebra that's black and yellow. Oh, and maybe it's like a chariot. No, wait, how about an elephant? Oh, wait, how about there's a mayor and police. It's the same thing just over and over. And sure, like the props or the little puppets or whatever, they can look kind of interesting, but there's nothing going on except, oh, just look at the different puppets we can make. Like, and then at the end of the short, Marco decides not to lie. It's just like, oh, I just saw a horse pulling a cart, and that's it. It's very empty. It's very nothing. What about you, Casey?
No, that makes me feel great because I completely agree. I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen. But also that was always my least favorite Dr. Seuss book. I was a pretty big Dr. Seuss kid, as I imagine a lot of English speaking children were. But yeah, at least with the book, the illustrations were always captivating enough to at least get you through, and you go, oh wow, I've never seen a yellow and black zebra before. But in film form, it just doesn't translate well. I'd say the puppets aren't necessarily my favorite thing. And then at least in the book, the ending, it feels a little fun. There's a little bit of you enjoy the irony, but in the film it's just like, well, man, like he could have at least like imagined something different or filmed something different.
Yeah, I never read the book. I did read a few Dr. Seuss books as a kid, but this wasn't one of them. Uh,
Mm.
and and I imagine it's like with the book, at least when you get bored of one image, you can at least turn the page to look at something different. Like you control your own pacing, but with this, you're stuck with the pacing that that the short gives you, and it spends a long time on some of these images. It's just like especially with that first the cart with the zebra or whatever. It spends a long time on that, and it's just like I want to see other things at least. Like don't just stay on this one thing. But yeah, it's just I'm glad we agree that this is a not good short. Uh,
Yeah.
any other thoughts?
No.
All right, let's move on to our third nominee, which is Dog, Cat, and Canary, directed by Howard Swift. Interestingly, I can't find a specific person to credit as a nominee for this film, just listed as Screen Gems in most places, which is the studio behind the film. However, I believe that had the short won, the award would have gone to Hugh McCullum, making this his first nomination. Meanwhile, the other Screen Gems nomination next year would have been for Paul Worth, making this McCullum's only nomination. McCullum is more well known as a producer of live action shorts, including many of the Three Stooges shorts. But here, he's just a footnote. Not even a footnote. I had to go searching independently to find his name, so sorry, Hugh. Don't blame yourself, blame Scream Gems. Anyway, Dog, Cat, and Canary is about just that: a dog, a cat, and a canary. The cat wants to eat the canary in the cage, but the dog is protecting it. However, it is on a leash, and comedy ensues. Casey, what did you think of this short?
I liked it a lot, actually.
Oh,
um
I didn't expect
um
you to like it.
oh wow, yeah. Thinking back on Tom and Jerry, which this obviously has some Tom and Jerry vibes. I also really did like the episodes when they incorporated a dog. I know he has a name, I forget his name. But I did like that. And of course I like the cat chases and that ending gag, where he ends up in the boiler, and now the dog and the canary are like, whatever, they're hyped or whatever you would say. But yeah, I found it really funny. And yeah, just that style of comedy will always resonate with me. If I like Tom and Jerry, I like the Tom and Jerry knockoffs.
Yeah. The dog is named Spike, by the way.
Thank
The
you.
Tom and Jerry dog. And anyway, I I was a bit less positive on this. I did end up liking but like it felt just kind of very generic. Like it it is just kind of a lesser Tom and Jerry kind of short, except or maybe more something along the lines of Sylvester and Tweety, uh, except without the dialogue. Um, but yeah, I like the animation at least. I like the colors and stuff. I thought it was a very well animated environment, and uh, and especially like the house when they eventually go in there. Like that is a nice house. I want to live in that damn house. But as for the meat of the short, the hijinks or whatever, it's just very kind of basic cat bird dog stuff. It's like it doesn't really do anything that's all that funny to me, or at least I understand that there are jokes in front of me, but none of them are making me laugh. And so it just ends up making me feel a bit empty or like wanting a bit more creativity in it. But it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's fine, in my opinion. Uh, yeah, that's about all I have to say. Anything else from you, Casey?
Um, no, no, not necessarily anything of value, but I do find it really funny when like you watch an old animated short and there's like a racist joke, and I don't know if it's like me and I'm just ready for the joke to be over, and it just always feels a little longer than like the rest of the jokes, and they're just like, isn't this really funny? And something about like audiences in 1944 busting up
Hmm.
at uh nothing of value, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. We will move on to our fourth nominee, which is Fish Fry, directed by James Culhane. This is the sixth nomination for Walter Lantz and the first for Andy Panda. If you're not familiar with Andy Panda, let's look at him like this. If Woody Woodpecker was the Bugs Bunny of Walter Lantz Productions, Andy Panda would be the Porky Pig. Andy Panda premiered before Woody Woodpecker and gained popularity in his own right, but was eventually surpassed in popularity by The Bird. In terms of personality, Andy Panda is more of a Mickey Mouse ripoff, and that is not a compliment. In Fish Fry, Andy Panda is bringing home a goldfish. A starving cat sees this and wants to eat Andy's goldfish, and employs a number of gags to try and get it. Uh, so kind of like the last short, this is just a very kind of generic kind of short. Like there's the cat, there's Andy Panda and his fish, and it's just a very, very basic kind of thing. There's no real creativity in this. And it doesn't help that these are so very loosely defined characters. Like Andy Panda is very nothing. A lot like Casey and for first time listeners, I hate Mickey Mouse. I hate his stupid face. He is very boring and annoying. And Andy Panda is not much different. He's just a very wooden kind of character. And at least with the starving cat, we get a little more personality, a little edge. He's like the antagonist of the short, or as just like he's kind of fun, but in the end, there's just no real jokes. Like it just kind of go all over the place with the fish, like the cat trying to catch the fish, and Andy loses the fish at some point. There's a whole chase scene. It it's just not fun. It's not funny to me. I did not really care for this much. What about you, Casey?
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually surprised to learn about Andy Panda because you really watching it really he like made me feel like he was more of a like a singular character. Like if if you if you had told me that like maybe they expanded on the fish or something like that in the sense that he would be more like a, sorry to keep comparing everything to Tom and Jerry, but more like a Jerry, more
Well,
like a Jerry kind of character,
everybody was
you
trying to
know?
rip off Tom and Jerry because they were the most popular thing at this time. Like they're right now they're in a string of four consecutive wins for best animated short. Like they're the hot thing in town.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, that explains why, as I'm going through the list and watching them, I was like, oh, this is Tom and Jerry. Oh, and this is Tom and Jerry. Oh, and there's Porky Pig. Oh, but this is Tom and Jerry. You know.
And then football.
Yeah, and then football.
We'll get to that later. Yeah,
Um,
everything's just trying to be Tom and Jerry, but nothing can be Tom and Jerry.
yeah, the really the only gag I liked was, or I'd say two, was when the cat, threatens Andy Panda, and then we've got the fish in the drain or whatever you call that, and he like socks the cat like a boxing
The
whatever
speed bag.
thing. Yeah, thank you. Ooh, a speed bag. I didn't know that's what they were called. Um, but yeah, I mean, generally did not laugh, did not enjoy what I saw.
Yeah, thinking back to it, like those were the only two parts I really like when the fish like punches the cat, and then when the cat's just like, you got a fish, right, right. I got an appetite, right, right. Now what if we merge the two together? And he takes the fish and runs. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably the best bit in the short, but it's a very low bar anyway. Yeah.
yeah.
We seem to be a lot on the same page for these, but and we are just speeding through them too.
I'm sorry, I don't have more to say.
No, it's fine. It's just a pretty lackluster lineup. Um,
Yeah.
but our fifth nominee is How to Play Football, directed by Jack Kinney. This is Walt Disney's 20th nomination in this category. And 20 nominations in, this is the first time we get a short with Goofy. I see how it is, Academy. You just hate the best character. Fun. Anyway, luckily he has a few more nominations down the line, but still 13 years into the category and we don't get a Goofy short until now. But anyway, as the title says, How to Play Football is a parody of many how-to documentary shorts that were popular at this time, and these type of shorts became a staple for Goofy of a long while. Oh, and so we see just this kind of parody of football in general. There's a lot of different gags about football. Casey, what did you think of How to Play Football?
Loved it. I'm a big. I'm not. I wouldn't have ever called myself a Goofy fan, but I find that the Disney, like the 2D Disney shorts that they did way back when, like around now, he's my favorite. Um, and he's just hilarious, and I love the how to videos and like just all the wacky things that he would do and all that. And as someone who doesn't understand football, um, it's just a great short. Um, and it's one of those ones like there's a gag like every shot, and they're all really solid, really funny. Yeah, I love it. I mean, what could be funnier than Goofy being thrown around and a sock with a hole and things like that?
Exactly. I gotta agree. I really love this short. I love Goofy in general, and I fun fact, I used to play football as a kid for like 4 years. I did it. And so it's like
Wow.
I understood a lot of it. I also grew up just watching football with my parents. But anyway, I I know football. This is a very funny bit parodying football, but it is just like a really great animated short. Like this is like in terms of just the animation, like it is really interesting. It's very stretchy, very like rubbery. It's a lot of fun to just watch and look at. But and as you said, there's a gag every single second. It's very fast paced, very just throws everything at the wall, sees what sticks, and that kind of comedy can be kind of grating at times. But I just really enjoyed this, and and I just Goofy is a very interesting character to think about too. It's just like he has a lot of different eras in terms of his shorts, and also like for Mickey and Donald shorts, like they are just like it's just Mickey and other characters or Donald and other characters. But like in these, every single character is Goofy. Like everyone is Goofy. There are infinite numbers of Goofies. And that is and it's that's not just for like these how-to shorts. Like it continues in a lot of different iterations of Goofy. And it's very interesting to think about, and it plays a lot into my theory about like how there are infinite goofs in the Disney universe, but also maybe just one singular goof. It's a complicated thing. I don't have time to go into it here. I have a I'm very passionate about Goofy, and he is not a dog. He is not Pluto. I just want to get that clear too. I knew that question comes up a lot, so just get that out of the way. Goofy isn't a dog. He is a goof.
I love it.
Oh yeah. Uh, I think that's a good place to move on. I assume you don't have much else to say.
I do not.
Okay. Let's move on to our sixth nominee, which is My Boy Johnny, directed by Eddie Donnelly. This is the second nomination for noted cheapskate Paul Terry and his Terry Tunes. The short is an idealized look at what life will be like after World War II, featuring houses that'll groom you, personal helicopters, and every soldier getting a pinup girl as his bride. Uh, I didn't really like this one. I think so. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of like this kind of comedic look at like what life will be like after World War II, while World War II is still going on at this time. Though we are nearing the end of it. I think like the next year will be when the Western Front, the German stuff all dies down, and then year after will be when the atom bombs are dropped. But at this point, the war is not near over. And so we get this kind of imaginative look at what life is like after once the GIs all return home and all that. And I think this could have been interesting, but it just ends up not really being like I appreciate how many different ideas they're throwing out here. It's like, and a weird thing about it is how like some shots they have like animals as people, but other shots they're just normal people. It's really weird kind of thing they're going on. They don't stick with one way or the other. It kind of feels like they maybe stitched like two different shorts together because they were both kind of about just like GIs coming home. And I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that this short didn't really do much for me. None of the gags really were funny to me. Like maybe at the time, if I were a person in 1944 and I saw this in a theater, maybe I would have liked it more, like having that cultural context. But as a person in 2022, this didn't do much for me. How about you, Casey?
I completely agree.
We keep agreeing.
Yeah. I was really hoping that this would be like a spicy episode, and we and we'd yell and fight. And it'd be
Yeah.
so. It's just no. I mean, it's boring.
Yeah. My last few episodes had a lot of disagreements, but no, we're just agreeing a lot here. Yeah,
We're so in sync.
and like, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, it's just like a lot of like looking at like other reviews of this on Letterboxd. It's a lot of people seem to like it. Like a lot of people thought it was interesting, and I just don't see that. Like it's like there are some interesting images in it. Like there's a like one of the ideas they have is that there's a giant plane and you got a swimming pool on top of it, and just like that was a fun idea. But it's just like overall, it's just a very kind of disconnected short where it's just different scenes that don't really flow together. Or it's like sure maybe some of the specific scenes kind of work on their own, but it's just like as a whole package it just doesn't flow well. It doesn't really entertain.
Yeah, I agree. When you brought up the idea that it could be two shorts mashed together, I totally see that in the sense that when they introduce the animal character, I was like, oh cool, like when you see another kind of version of this, like I think that Hitler Looney Tunes short where Donald becomes an insert. Not Donald. No, there's a character. You get it. There's a character that's an animal that becomes an insert for people, and they do that all the time, and it's fun. Instead of just like a wacky little duckling pressing buttons and whatever else happens. Yeah, the same thing. I imagine that people in 1944 just like having no idea when World War II could be over. It's a nice levity and has some imagination to it. But yeah, as like piece of visual media, not something I would watch again.
Yeah, it's a very forgettable short. Like when before I watched it, I've seen all these shorts before, and as I was going into this, I thought this was going to be a completely different short. Like there's a short that comes up a few years later, I think maybe in the 50s, that's about like this family of planes or whatever, and I thought this was about that. but it's not. That's a different short. This is its own thing. Yeah, had no memory of this when going into it, but now I watched it again. I know what it is, and what it is not much. All right. So now on to our seventh and final nominee is Swooner Crooner, directed by Frank Tashlin. This is the eighth and final nomination for producer Leon Schlesinger, and the first and somehow only nomination for beloved icon Porky Pig, who is too good for this world. Schlesinger was the main producer for the Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes shorts during their entire run. And while he made shorts for Warner Brothers, the Schlesinger studio was its own entity. That changed in 1944 when Schlesinger sold the studio to Warner Brothers and retired thereafter. The Warner Brothers studio would be taken over by Edward Selzer, who was described as having no sense of humor nor an appreciation for cartoons. These changes also led to the departure of some of the staff, including directors Robert Clampett and Frank Tashlin, who directed this. But this change, as coincidental as it may be, eventually saw later Oscar success for Merry Melodies. While Schlesinger boycotted the Oscars due to favoritism for Walt Disney, Selzer would win 4 Oscars during his tenure. And all big changes are happening at Warner Brothers at this time. As for what we're actually here to talk about, Swooner Crooner is about an egg factory run by Porky Pig. The hens are laying their eggs as usual, but get distracted by a Frank Sinatra-esque rooster that starts singing. Porky Pig then auditions other roosters to keep his hens producing eggs, eventually picking one somewhat resembling Bing Crosby. Casey, what did you think of our final nominee?
Liked it. I love Porky Pig. I mean, there's not a lot of Porky in the short, I would say.
It's not much Porky.
But you know, when I see him, he's fun. I always brings a smile to my face. I like the idea that of a boss just making all his employees horny just to keep them working. Yeah, and I mean, I think the singing bits go on a little long, but whatever. But yeah. The Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby comparisons always make me chuckle. It's fun. It's fun, and it's one of the ones I like. So,
Yeah, it is disappointing how little Porky there is in this, especially since this is his only Oscar nomination. But the short as is, I think, is fine. Although I do like the gag at the end when it's just like, so we see all these mountains of eggs, and Porky asks the 2 roosters how'd they do it, and then they start singing together, and then Porky lays eggs of his own, which 1 implies that Porky is gay, and 2 implies that Porky can lay eggs, which is fun, fun facts. Yeah, you don't really hear that much about Porky and his homosexuality or his egg laying abilities, but they are confirmed here. But yeah, as a whole, it's a fine short. I didn't hate it or anything. It's just pretty standard Looney Tunes fare. And yeah, you were right when you said the singing bits go on a bit too long. It's just like you want to go to the comedy, but you're just kind of stuck there listening to Frank Sinatra and a Frank Sinatra impersonator as a rooster. Yeah. I don't have that much to say about it.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I laughed and then it was over.
Yeah. All right, I guess that's the end. We've gone through the 7 shorts, and now it's time to rank them all. Casey, start us off with your number 7.
My number 7, it's and to think I saw it on Mulberry Street easily.
I have to agree. Just a very nothing empty short with visuals that aren't even all that interesting. Just a very lacking in all respects. Number 6.
Mine is My Boy Johnny.
All right. Mine is Fish Fry. Although my number 5 is My Boy Johnny.
Okay.
But what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Fish Fry.
All right. So we agree that they're both pretty terrible. They're both kind of just not very funny, even though they try to be funny.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's your number 4?
Swooner Crooner.
Oh, okay. My number 4 was Dog, Cat, and Canary. Although, is your number 3 Dog, Cat, and Canary?
Yes, it is.
All right. It's just, yeah, it's like we're disagreeing, but not in a very notable way because it's just
Yeah,
we just swap them in different places. But yeah, these two shorts, they're fine, but not much to write home about either. And
yeah.
what's your number 2?
Mouse Trouble.
My number 2 is How to Play Football.
Wow.
We just And so your number 1 is How to Play Football. My number 1 is Mouse Trouble. Which, and again, even though we have them different places, we both agree that these are both pretty funny shorts where it's a lot of fun to be had. And although both of their own ways. Like,
Absolutely.
all right. So those are our ranks. And before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Casey, or anything you'd like to promote?
Besides Porky Pig should have an Oscar.
He should. He should get like 50 nominations.
Absolutely. I just plugged my Twitter because I don't really do much right now, but it's at Casey Young, the 00 at the end there. I have a short film coming out in September, and if you want to watch me watch 1,000 movies in a year, that's also where to do that. And I also frequently tweet about MILFs.
Oh, well, that's fun. MILFs are always fun. Want to tell us more about that short film? That's interesting. You just said there is a short film coming on.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's whatever you want the short film to be. It's coming out in September. No, I'm one of the co-leads in it. It's a pretty just lighthearted short about two friends. The writer wanted it to be a sort of showcase of the joy that transgender men can feel, and the sweet relationship that two trans men can have platonically together. It's about the beauty of friendship, and just, I guess, the normalcy of lives that may seem abnormal to other people.
Well, that sounds very interesting. So this episode is going to come out on September 29th. Do you know like when in September it'll be out to watch, or
Whoa,
where?
September 29th?
Yeah.
Let's see. Where, not entirely sure. But it will definitely be out by then. And then, if anybody, if I don't talk about it, it hasn't been available to watch for others. But we are going to festivals, so when those come around, you'll definitely be able to see it there.
And the title of the short, one more time.
Oh yeah, the title is. I'm so bad at promoting it. It's just like a short. You'll find out about it via carrier
It's
pigeon.
a secret short. Ooh.
It's called Golden Boys.
All right. And so when the episode comes out, I'll ask you if there's a link for it anywhere, and I'll tweet it. I'll tweet it along with the episode link just so people can watch it. Help promote it, even though this podcast doesn't have much of a following right now. But more is better than nothing, or something's better than nothing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Casey, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the Short Podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.